for 3 transgressions, and for 4. There are seasons when life feels full, when blessings seem to stack on top of one another, and we settle into a rhythm that feels predictable and safe. We enjoy the comfort, the stability, the sense that everything is working the way it should. And without noticing it happening, something quiet begins to shift inside us. Prosperity softens the edges of our devotion. Comfort cools our hunger for God. Blessings become normal, and normal becomes something we feel entitled to. That is the world Amos stepped into. Israel was thriving, the borders were expanding, wealth was flowing, homes were bigger, tables were fuller, and worship was louder than ever. But underneath the beauty of their success, something had gone terribly wrong. The people God had blessed forgot the God who blessed them. They still gathered, they still sang, they still offered sacrifices, but their hearts were far away. And if we slow down long enough, we can feel how easily the same thing can happen to us. Amos opens with a phrase that echoes like a drumbeat through the hills of Israel, for 3 transgressions and for 4. Amos chapter 1, verse 3. It wasn't quick judgment. It wasn't a snap of divine anger. It was the slow, patient, long-suffering heart of God, counting line after line they had crossed, while giving opportunity after opportunity to return. Judgment wasn't coming because of one sin. It was coming after generations of ignoring the God who had given them everything. And when Amos turns his attention to Israel, the mask finally comes off. Because they sell the righteous for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals, those who trample the head of the poor into the dust of the earth and turn aside the way of the afflicted. Amos chapter 2, verses 6 through 7. These weren't violent crimes committed by hardened criminals. These were everyday choices made by a prosperous people who had stopped valuing those God valued. People became disposable. Convenience mattered more than compassion. Personal comfort was pursued at the cost of the innocent. In a world overflowing with blessing, the poor were crushed without a second thought. And God kept trying to wake them up. I gave you cleanness of teeth in all your cities, and lack of bread in all your places, yet you did not return to me, declares the Lord. Amos chapter 4, verse 6. Over and over, God shook their foundations to remind them who he was. But prosperity had settled too deeply into their bones. They gladly devoured God's blessings as if they were owed to them. Their worship became a social event. Their sacrifices became a performance. Their gratitude dissolved into entitlement. And God said something no one expected to hear. I hate, I despise your feasts, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them. Take away from me the noise of your songs. But let justice roll down like waters, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. Amos chapter 5, verses 21 through 24. We hear those words and they rise like poetry, but they were meant to hit with the force of truth. Waters that roll, streams that never dry. God was painting a picture of a people whose compassion and righteousness would move with the steady strength of a river. Not occasional, not seasonal, but constant, reshaping everything it touches. And if we're honest, we feel the sting because we know how easily we fall into the same rhythm. We attend, we give, we say the prayers we're supposed to say. And yet we can live lives wrapped in comfort while the broken sit just outside the glow of our blessings. We can feast while others starve. We can justify our excess while ignoring the suffering around us. We can quiet the voices calling us to compassion in the same way Israel tried to silence Amos. When Amos spoke truth, Amaziah told him to leave. Go home. Stop stirring the pot. Stop making people uncomfortable. Stop exposing the heart. But God's message didn't bend to public opinion then, and it does not bend now. In the middle of his rebuke, God offered a way home. Seek good and not evil that you may live. Hate evil and love good and establish justice in the gate. Amos chapter 5, verses 14 through 15. It is the invitation Amos still extends to us. Seek good. Love what God loves. Care for those he cares for. Let justice and compassion flow naturally from a heart shaped by God's presence. Because the blessings we enjoy were never meant to make us comfortable. They were meant to make us grateful. They were meant to make us generous. They were meant to turn our hearts toward the God who gave them. And when we return to him, righteousness doesn't just trickle, It flows like a river that never runs dry. As you reflect on this passage, what stands out to you most today? Your insight might be something someone else needs to hear. Feel free to share your reflection in the comments.